Righty. Let's go and have a look at this TVNZ poll. This is the poll that came out during the week that was talking all about, who's where in the actual election cycle. They also did a bit of polling and they looked at race relations in New Zealand. So let's have a quick look at that.
It seems the country's divided on race relations, with almost half the people surveyed in our latest One News Varian poll saying the situation's got worse. And it comes as politicians gear up for October's election, with fears race could become a political football. Deputy Political Editor.
Could become a political football. It's not one now. Could become one though.
So Mikey Sherman has more.
Parliament, known for the rough and tumble of politics, at times described as verging on race baiting.
I know who causes violence in the world. It is white cis men.
Te mana o te wai, concepts of Māori and spiritual matters which should have absolutely no bearing on decision making.
Constantly bashing Māori.
But as the election campaign nears, it's feared issues like co-governance will ramp up race politics.
National's position's really clear. We don't believe in the co-governance of public services. We believe we are one country.
I've acknowledged this in the whole time that I've been Prime Minister, but we need to make sure that we're bringing people along with us.
So far, people are divided. In our poll, we asked, do you believe race relations are getting worse or better?
What are your thoughts, Chewy? Do you believe race relations are getting worse or better or staying the same in New Zealand? I'm not saying what do you reckon. Have a guess what they're going to be. I mean, what do you reckon?
I think they, overall they are getting better.
Yeah.
I think the discourse around them is getting worse.
I'm often reminded, and I think I've mentioned this a few times before, the documentary Bowling for Columbine, when Michael Moore goes with an academic into South Central Los Angeles. And, it was the area where Rodney King was beaten. And they look around and it's a lovely leafy sort of a street, and it's got nice trees and it looks all pretty and that kind of stuff. And they have this conversation around violence. And they said the evidence was that violence was going down, but the coverage of violence or murders had gone up by 600%. So do you believe race relations are getting worse or better or staying the same in New Zealand? I think unarguably it's getting better. And I think the reporting of race relations is unarguably getting worse. That's what I think. And I think you'll see that they talk to a few people here. And obviously, it's not a particularly big sample size. But what they talk to here, the people they talk to here, the old white ones are like, it's getting worse. The brown ones are like, it's getting better. And the young ones are like, it's getting better. Or, same old, same old. And like I said, we can't take that. Anecdotal evidence doesn't necessarily represent the data, but that data wouldn't surprise me if old white New Zealanders, because of what they've been told by some people, say it's getting worse, and everyone else is like, it's getting worse in some sectors, and the worst areas that it's getting, and those sectors are the areas of old white people being told it's getting worse. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's what I wonder. But let's have a look what the actual research came up to saying, with the polling said.
Better or staying about the same in New Zealand. Only 14% say it's getting better. 35% believe it's about the same, while 47% say race relations are getting worse. The rest don't know or refuse to say.
I have seen the deterioration quite detrimental.
I think they've got better. I've been here for about 20 years.
There are flare-ups here and there, but I think overall things are better.
In some places it's gotten a lot better, some places definitely a lot worse.
Wherever the government divides people by race, ACT will be there to criticise them. We make no apology for that.
Just this week, an ACT Party media release was headlined, Labour asks pharmacists to racially profile. Almost every second press release the ACT Party puts out is centred around race.
Well, it's certainly not every second one, but
the ACT Party continue to lie.
Puts out is centred around race.
Well, it's certainly.
That mouth noise he makes is unpleasant.
This face right here
is so punchable.
Is so much a perfect face for an H to be put on the forehead. Like this particular face, this particular moment looks like it should have an H on the forehead. Like just purely the face he pulls. It's fascinating. So
is centred around race.
Well, it's certainly not every second one, but
the ACT Party continue to lie. The ACT Party continue to lie about the treaty.
In the end, no political party can claim to be holier than thou on this, and that's because our poll shows there are many people who don't feel well served by either side of the argument.
So you can't keep your politicking on a moment in time based on fear and division. People will see through that.
Another big issue causing big debate this election. Mikey Sherman, One News.
All right, there you go, Chewy. What are your thoughts, sir?
What? Sorry, one second. Pad for time.
Oh, okay. Padding. So, nothing bad happened in New Zealand today. What a fun
There
time
we go.
it was.
My masterpiece.
Well done, sir.
There we go.
Very quick. Very quick.
Yeah, like I do think overall things are getting better. Like you go back 10 years ago, 20 years ago, the perception that race relations were doing fine because we barely considered anything to do with the treaty or Māori.
Yeah.
Like I remember how treaty settlements were dealt with by the media at that point, as an example. The lip service that was paid to Māori culture or the language. Things are getting better. And I think, again, for the vast majority of people, they just get on with it. They just adapt. But the discourse, it's almost like the people that are losing this fight, the people that don't want to, that want it to be a very European-centric country in the South Pacific, I think they feel squeezed. And I'm not opposed to that. But their reaction is loud.
Yeah.
And they've got a political party or two backing them up. But I think in the place where we're at, where someone like Julian Batchelor can get in a car and go from one end of the country to the other, holding these little meetings, which are combated in almost every place he goes to, but he also always has people turn up to them.
Yeah.
I think that's another thing. And we focus on, well, I focus on it. And it just becomes that perception, right? That it, and this is why I say the discourse around race relations has got worse.
No, and I think that's a huge part of it. I mean, like, again, anecdotal evidence may not necessarily represent the data, but when you look at the brown guy, pardon my blunt, identifying the person who said, I've been here for 20 years and it's getting better, I would take his position of knowledge of race relations above and beyond the 60-year-old white woman who has never had to worry about race relations in her life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.